and High Dragon, double dragons there. Double dragon, steal, heat rotom, and Mammoth Swine going to be able to take the way for Hayden and have a strong support role as both players going to get ready to get underway. Alex going to start off with Meowstic and Salamence. Going to be able to provide some Intimidate support, as Hakemo going to send out Lucario and Heat Rotom. So interesting leads right now. Salamence going to be able to get off a good amount of damage, really, as Meowstic going to be able to fire off some very strong support moves. Salamence firing off the Intimidate. Lucario can be mixed. I mean, Lucario has powerful close combats, but at the same time its special move pool is also very good and designed to get around Intimidates from Salamence. Salamence, of course, popular to carry Fire Blast or be able to fire off a Dragon Meteor onto that Heat Rotom. So right now, Alex going to pick which Pokemon he wants to deal the most amount of damage to, as Meowstic can also provide Fake Out support if it really needed to, but of course Lucario does carry Inner Focus, but since it does Mega Evolve this turn, going to lose its Inner Focus. So right now, both players seeing what's going to happen. Lucario going to use Follow Me, going to draw away any attack. Interesting decision. What happens if Salamence does decide to fire off, say, a Fire Blast? That's going to do a lot of damage to that Lucario. As Thunder Wave going to land on Lucario, so Meowstic actually does its job and fires off that support move. As Salamence going to fire off a Rock Slide, going to do a good amount of damage to Rotom, but it missed actually, as Lucario, of course, not really minding that. And the Hidden Power Ice going to come out from the Salamence, or onto the Salamence, and bring it down all the way to 2 HP. So good amount of damage right there. Not too bad of a turn for Hayden, firing off a good amount of damage. And Lucario, of course, if it continues to use Follow Me, not going to be too bad of his position. But at the same time, you know, you're going to be wasting your Mega on something that's just going to sit there and Follow Me and redirect attacks. Might be a bit more cautious to use that Follow Me, though, now that Hayden does know that Salamence carries Rock Slide instead of single target attacks. And Alex, of course, seeing that, might just continue to fire off Rock Slides or even hit the Fire Blast button or whatever fire move that Salamence carries in order to do damage to that Lucario, as Salamence does decide to switch back. Going to save that Intimidate for later on. Maybe fire off into the Garchomps or Mammoth Swines if Hayden did decide to bring it, as Safeguard going to go up from Meowstic and protect it. And the Thunderbolt coming off from the Heat Rotom onto the other Heat Rotom, not going to do too much damage, as Flash Cannon going to come out, going to hit that Meowstic for a good amount of damage. Of course, Lucario with that adaptability ability, going to double its same type attack boost from 1.5 to just 2, and do a good amount of damage. As Heat Rotom from the Glow's side going to reveal the leftovers, going to be able to heal back a bit of damage each turn. So right now, of course, that Heat Rotom from the Glow's side going to be able to threaten that Lucario if it really wanted to, while Hayden's Heat Rotom going to be able to sit there pretty comfortably. Meowstic not exactly the most offensive Pokemon there is, and you know, Heat Rotom usually carries Hidden Power Ice, Thunderbolt, Overheat, and Will-O-Wisp. None of those moves really threatening it at all. As Meowstic going to go for the Swagger. So Swagger going to be a factor here in this battle. Going to confuse and boost Hayden's Heat Rotom's attack. And there it is. Going to hit itself from confusion. Going to do a bit of damage to itself, as Heat Rotom going to fire off the Will-O-Wisp. Not going to be effective at all onto the Lucario because it's already paralyzed. Probably trying to look for a switch there into, say, Garchomp or something, but Hayden decides to stay in and is actually fully paralyzed. So right now in the same position as itself, except that Heat Rotom on Hayden's side is confused, and the Glows are really showing off that, you know, if he does decide to, he can easily switch in a physical attacker and Swagger himself. As Meowstic going to go for the attract, or the Charms, sorry, as Lucario's attack is going to partially fall, and the Overheat going to land, most likely going to target that Lucario. It does, and most likely going to be the knockout. Massive amounts of damage, as it does pick up the knockout, and Lucario drops, and Agloza picks up the early 4-3 lead, although that Salamence in back is heavily damaged. Heat Rotom still confused on Hayden's side, and actually does get to fire off the Thunderbolt, going to hit that Heat Rotom and do a little bit of damage, bringing it all the way down to almost 50%, as Leftovers brings it back up a little bit. And right now, Hayden's going to have to find a way to come in and be able to knock out Meowstic and Heat Rotom. course, Meowstick, you don't want to leave it out too long. And there's the Garchomp, probably what Agloza was baiting with that Will-O-Wisp, but Hayden just decided to stay in with that Lucario instead. Unfortunate for the full paralysis, but at the same time, risky move by Agloza. Right now, you don't want to leave that Meowstick in too long. With that Charm, going to be able to lower Garchomp's attack partially, as Agloza's Heat Roam going to protect itself, not going to take any damage this turn. And the Charm does come out, going to land onto that Garchomp and lower its attack, going to heavily just not allow Garchomp to do too much damage. That Rock Slide going to come out and hit that Meowstick. Not too much damage going to be dealt to that Meowstick, bringing it down under 50%. As Heat Roam going to fire for Thunderbolt. Is it going to be enough to knock out that Meowstick? Going to be close, and not quite enough, as Meowstick hangs on and still able to fire off Charms as well. So unfortunate turn right there for Agloza, because right now, or unfortunate turn for Hayden, that he could not pick up that easy knockout on that Meowstick. So Garchomp right now heavily weakened with that Charm. That Rock Slide's not going to be able to pick up that knockout on that Heat Rotom, which he really wanted. And Meowstick can easily just fire off another Charm if he really wanted to even further weaken that Garchomp. As that Heat Rotom gonna try to see what its best course of action is against Agloza. While Agloza's Heat Rotom, you know, it's still out there, it can still do a good amount of damage, although its special attack has been dropped heavily. Could easily fire off a Will-O-Wisp if it decided to on that Garchomp to weaken it even more if it really wanted to. So Swagger gonna come out, hit that Heat Room again, might as well keep it confused, boost its attack again, currently at +4, gonna do a bit more damage to itself when it hits itself in confusion. As Garchomp gonna fire off the Rock Slide, gonna do enough to knock out the Meowstick and get a good amount of damage to that Heat Rotom. So Heat Rotom right now confused, isn't gonna be able to move through it. Confusion fires off the Thunderbolt and brings it down all the way and gets the knockout through a critical hit. So Agloza right now currently down 2-3 with Salamence heavily damaged. So Salamance's going to come in, going to fire off Intimidate onto that Garchomp, currently at -3. As Kangaskhan comes in, Shiny Kangaskhan going to come in and be able to support that Salamence with a bit of fake out support, fake out pressure if it really has fake out. Salamence right now heavily damaged. Going to see if it can fire off an attack before it gets knocked out. And it all really comes down to what Hayden has in back to see if he has the pieces to finish off Agloza. Kangaskhan is so powerful, and he's already lost his biggest Kangaskhan counter in Lucario, but at the same time, you know, if this Heat Room has Will-O-Wisp, you can easily fire off that Will-O-Wisp to kind of weaken and slow down that Kangaskhan. So Hayden right now on the ropes, trying to see what his best course of action is to try to sneak away this victory, as Kangaskhan does decide to Mega Evolve. You're going to be able to get that Parental Bond ability, which is so powerful and popular that it kind of shaped the metagame, as Salamence is going to fire off a Rock Slide, going to be able to miss the Garchomp, but hit the Heat Rotom. And the Citrus Berry from the Heat Rotom going to activate and heal itself back up to about 75%. As Kangaskhan going to go for the return, going to be able to knock out that Rotom, so Garchomp going to be able to move now, as it decides to fire off the Rock Slide, and Salamence dodges it, so big dodge right there from Salamence, as the heavily weakened Kangaskhan going to be able to, or the heavily weakened Garchomp going to be able to do a bit of damage to that Kangaskhan, as Hydreigon going to come out, and it all depends on what items Hydreigon has to see if he has what it can take to knock out this game. Kangaskhan, of course, you know, still out there, still going to be able to do a good amount of damage.
Wow, using 2 pseudo-legendaries on the same team.
And double dragons on Hayden's side going to be very important, as Salamence is going to be content to fire off Rock Slides. Choice Scarf locked into Rock Slide against Hydreigon and Garchomp. Unfortunate, as Return going to come out, going to hit that Hydreigon, and going to be able to pick up the knockout easily, as Garchomp right now most likely going to fire off a Rock Slide to try to pick up damage onto Kangaskhan. And Garchomp actually flinches, so Hayden right now back against the wall and needs to figure out a way to be able to sneak around this. A big critical hit would be very important for Hayden for any chances to come back, as Kangaskhan can fire off the return onto the Garchomp, can do a good amount of damage. Rough Skin going to be able to do damage back to Kangaskhan, and I don't think that'll be enough to survive, but at the same time, Garchomp needs a big hit right now on that Kangaskhan to be able to knock it out. As Garchomp going to be content to fire off Rock Slides, finally getting that knockout on Salmon. It's really unfortunate right there, as last turn the flinch happened, but at the same time that Rock Slide just chip damage really. As it's Kangaskhan versus Garchomp right now, as Alex going to be able to easily seal the deal with his Kangaskhan versus Garchomp. And Hayden is going to drop to 3-2, as Agloza is going to go up to 4-1 and secure his place in top cut here at the San Bruno Premier Challenge. Hayden going to have to rely on tiebreakers to get into top cut, so it's going to be interesting to see how this top 8 bracket appears. A lot of the players from SoCal have actually secured the place in top cut, so definitely proving that coming